Introduction. There's a strange paradox in our modern world. We are more connected than ever before. Yet somehow we are also more alone than we've ever been. Every scroll, every click, every heart-shaped like is supposed to bring us closer together. But for many it only amplifies the silence within. In a society where people document every meal, every thought, every moment, those who remain silent seem almost alien. The ones who don't post on social media, the ones who don't share their breakfast, their heartbreak, or their vacations, the ones who simply exist and without the need for an audience. What's going on in their minds? Are they disconnected? Or are they the last ones truly connected to reality? Today we explore the psychology of people who don't post on social media through the lens of philosopher Slavoj Žižek, the radical thinker who sees beneath the surface of our modern illusions. Žižek often reminds us that the world we live in is not what it seems. That our actions, even the most innocent, are shaped by deeper forces, ideology, desire, and the hidden structures of society. To him, posting online is not just communication, it's a performance of identity, a declaration of existence in a digital theater. So what does it mean when someone refuses to perform? When they choose silence over validation, solitude over spectacle? In this video we'll break this down, not as a social critique, but as a journey into the hidden strength of restraint, presence, and inner awareness. Let's begin with part 1, the silence that speaks for Žižek. Human behavior always hides something beneath the surface. We think we are being authentic, but most of the time we are performing for an invisible audience, seeking recognition, approval, or belonging. And nowhere is this performance more visible than on social media. The constant sharing, the endless selfies, the captions about self-love and success, they're not always signs of confidence. Often they are symptoms of deep insecurity. The person who posts every detail of their life is not necessarily full of joy. They may be terrified of being unseen. Now consider the opposite, the person who does not post. They live without an audience. They are not announcing every emotion, not measuring their worth through likes or comments. From a Žižekian perspective, their silence isn't emptiness. It's a form of resistance. In a culture addicted to self-display, to remain unseen is a radical act. To choose not to post is to say, I am not for sale. My life is not a product. It's not that they lack expression. It's that they have chosen a different kind of expression, one that doesn't depend on external validation. Žižek would argue that they are closer to confronting the real, the raw, unfiltered experience of life that social media tries so hard to mask. When you're not busy curating an image, you begin to experience your thoughts more honestly. Your solitude becomes alive. Your boredom becomes fertile ground for insight. And perhaps this is what terrifies most people, that without posting, without the digital applause, they might have to face themselves. The person who doesn't post has made peace with that confrontation. They're not escaping reality. They're meeting it, without filters, without slogans, without pretending. Their silence is not absence, it's awareness. It's the sound of someone who no longer needs to prove their existence through pixels. The invisible power of detachment. To understand people who don't post, we must understand detachment, a concept that connects Stoic philosophy with Žižek's critical theory. The Stoics believed that freedom comes from mastering what's within our control, our thoughts, our actions, our responses, and letting go of everything else. Social media thrives on the opposite. It feeds on comparison, envy, and emotional reaction. Every notification pulls you further from yourself. Every scroll feeds a small part of your ego, while starving your inner peace. Žižek takes this further. He would say that social media doesn't just distract you, It manufactures desire. It teaches you what to want. It shapes your identity not from within but from the outside. And so, the person who doesn't post is not just quiet. They are reclaiming something. They are reclaiming the right to be unseen, to be undefined by public expectation. Their detachment is not apathy. It's control. It's the refusal to let the machine of attention dictate their worth. Imagine the mind of such a person. They wake up not to capture a sunrise but to feel it. They eat not to photograph the plate but to taste the moment. They talk, not to record a story but to experience connection. There's a profound power in this kind of presence. It's the power of living without an audience, of no longer performing the self, just being it. Žižek might describe this as a rebellion against the symbolic order, the web of expectations and images that define how we should live. By stepping out of it, by refusing to participate, these individuals regain a kind of freedom that modern society has almost forgotten. And ironically, while everyone is screaming for attention, the silent ones and the ones who don't post often become the most intriguing. Their mystery is magnetic. Their restraint speaks louder than any post ever could. In the end, their silence isn't a lack of expression. It's the purest form of it. It's a philosophy of being quietly lived. The illusion of connection. Žižek once said that modern life is filled with false choices. We think we're choosing freely, but in truth our desires are being chosen for us. Social media perhaps is the clearest example of this illusion. When we post, we believe we're connecting, but in many cases we're simply participating in an endless ritual of validation. A ritual designed not to connect, but to keep us performing. Each post is a tiny act of confession, a digital whisper saying, "See me. Recognize me. Approve of me." And this cycle becomes addictive because it gives the illusion of belonging, even when no real connection exists. Now imagine the psychology of someone who steps outside this loop. Someone who doesn't post, doesn't perform, doesn't seek the mirror of approval. From the outside, they may seem detached, perhaps even antisocial. But inside, there's something extraordinary happening. They are reclaiming their autonomy of perception. They don't need to be seen to feel real. They don't crave to be mirrored by others to validate their emotions. In their quiet, they rediscover the forgotten truth that connection begins within. Žižek would argue that our obsession with posting is not about sharing, but about escaping. We post to escape silence. We post to escape boredom. We post to escape the discomfort of being alone with ourselves. But the one who doesn't post embraces that silence. They transform boredom into reflection. Their solitude becomes a mirror, not a prison. And in that mirror, they begin to see life not as a performance, but as an experience. A walk in the park, a moment of laughter, a tear that no one sees. These are not content. They are consciousness. Their detachment from the virtual world does not mean detachment from life. Quite the opposite. It's a return to life in its raw, unedited form. A life that doesn't need to be posted to be beautiful. The Stoic mind and the Žižekian paradox. The Stoics taught that inner peace is achieved when our actions align with nature, not with the opinions of others. Epictetus once said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." And what is more foolish in today's culture than silence? To not post, to not brand yourself, to not chase visibility. In a world built on noise, that silence can seem almost rebellious. Slavoj Žižek adds another layer to this. He suggests that true freedom doesn't come from following our desires, but from questioning where those desires come from. When someone chooses not to post, they're not rejecting technology. They're rejecting manipulation. They're asking the quiet question, why should I share this? Who benefits when I do? In Žižek's view, ideology is most powerful when it feels natural, when we think we're just being ourselves. Social media thrives on this illusion. It convinces us that sharing every thought is authentic, when in reality it's conformity disguised as freedom. But the person who doesn't post has seen through the disguise. They have found authenticity in absence. They have turned restraint into rebellion. From a Stoic lens, this restraint is the highest form of discipline. It's not suppressions, it's sovereignty. They are free, not because they reject pleasure, but because pleasure no longer rules them. They don't need to announce their peace, because their peace is real. They don't need to photograph their joy, because their joy is lived, not displayed. Their life is not content, it's contemplation. And this perhaps is the greatest paradox. The quieter they become, the louder their presence feels. Because in a world addicted to attention, true power lies in indifference. Not coldness, but calm. Not arrogance, but awareness. Žižek would say this detachment reveals the cracks in the social illusion. It shows that you can live meaningfully outside the gaze of others. That existence itself does not need applause to be valid. The depth of the unseen. There's something mysterious about those who choose silence in an age of noise. Their restraint feels like a secret. Their quiet feels like a statement. But the psychology behind this choice runs deeper than mere preference. It's existential. It's about redefining the self beyond the reach of comparison. When you don't post, you're not erasing yourself. You're protecting the sacred parts of you from becoming public property. You're preserving your inner world from the distortion of perception, because once you share something, it's no longer just yours. It becomes a fragment of the collective gaze, interpreted, judged, reshaped by strangers. Žižek often speaks about how ideology captures us through enjoyment, how we learn to enjoy our own exposure, our own performance. But when you stop posting, you stop feeding that cycle. You return to a purer kind of joy, one that doesn't depend on visibility. The unseen life becomes the real life. You start to feel things more fully because you're no longer filtering them through the question, how will this look online? You're no longer curating, you're simply living. This kind of depth frightens people because it reminds them of what they've lost. The stillness of presence, the beauty of anonymity, the peace of being instead of appearing. For the Stoics, this was the essence of wisdom, to live according to your own principles, not according to the applause of the crowd. And for Žižek, it is to awaken from the ideology of visibility, to realize that freedom does not come from being seen, but from no longer needing to be. So the people who don't post on social media aren't necessarily avoiding connection. They're seeking a higher form of it, a connection with truth, with authenticity, with the quiet pulse of existence itself. They remind us that what truly matters cannot be posted, that the most meaningful experiences of life happen in silence, and that sometimes the most powerful statement you can make is none at all. The weight of solitude. There's a quiet strength that only solitude can teach. But in today's hyper-connected world, solitude has been confused with loneliness. People fear being alone because in that silence the noise of their own thoughts begins to echo back at them. For Žižek, this confrontation with one's inner world is not a punishment. It's an awakening. He would say that society trains us to avoid stillness, because stillness reveals truth. When you are alone, there's no audience to perform for, no algorithm to satisfy. There's only you, and the raw, unedited experience of your own mind. Those who don't post live closer to this reality. They have learned to walk with their thoughts instead of running from them. They do not fear silence because they've made peace with it. Their solitude becomes a sacred space, a workshop of understanding, not a prison of absence. Žižek might call this the real, the dimension that remains when all illusions collapse. It is in this real where people rediscover the meaning of existence without filters, without likes, without trends, without the performance of perfection. In solitude, they see life as it is, imperfect, fleeting, but profoundly real. And when they return to the world, they bring with them a quiet authenticity. They don't speak loudly, but their presence carries depth. They've stopped trying to appear whole because they've started becoming whole. From a Stoic view, solitude is the training ground for resilience. It's where the mind learns to stand on its own, free from the shifting opinions of others. When you master solitude, you master yourself. Those who don't post are not escaping the world, they're engaging it from the inside out. They are building invisible strength, a kind of spiritual muscle that doesn't need applause to grow. And this strength shows in their calmness, their stability, their unshakable focus. Their stillness is not weakness, it's clarity. Their quiet isn't absence, it's depth. In a sea of endless updates and opinions, their silence becomes a mirror that reflects what we've forgotten. That being alone can be beautiful. The power of the unseen revolution. We live in an age of constant exposure, where people mistake visibility for value. The more you're seen, the more you're assumed to matter. But Žižek would laugh at this illusion, because in the logic of capitalism, visibility is not freedom. It's control. Every click, every share, every glimpse of your private life becomes data, a commodity. To be visible is to be monetized. So what happens when you choose invisibility? You become unpredictable. You step outside the system's control. Your silence becomes subversive. The people who don't post are, in a subtle way, revolutionaries. They refuse to turn their lives into currency. They refuse to play the endless game of comparison and envy. They are not shouting, "Look at me." They are whispering, "See yourself." This quiet revolution is philosophical at its core. It reminds us that meaning doesn't need an audience, that fulfillment doesn't require applause, and that wisdom grows best in silence. In Stoic terms, they have achieved ataraxia, tranquil freedom from disturbance. They have stopped seeking happiness in impressions and begun cultivating it within. Their contentment is invisible, but it's real. Žižek might call this act a rupture, a break in the ideological flow. Because when you refuse to participate in the endless performance, you expose its absurdity. You show that there is life beyond the spectacle. And that life, unseen, unposted, unmeasured, and is infinitely richer. Their rebellion is quiet but contagious. It challenges us to ask, who am I when no one is watching? Am I still me when I'm no longer performing for approval? If the answer is yes, then you've found something sacred, the self beneath the show, the beauty of being unseen. So what can we learn from those who don't post? Žižek would tell us that their silence reveals the truth of our age, that in a world obsessed with exposure, real freedom begins where the camera stops. And the Stoics would remind us that peace isn't found in noise but in harmony with oneself. Perhaps the greatest wisdom lies not in what we share, but in what we choose to keep sacred. The meal not photographed, the thought not tweeted, the love not performed. These are the quiet moments where the soul breathes again. To live unseen is not to disappear. It's to reappear to yourself. It's to return to authenticity, to rediscover the pleasure of privacy, to feel the depth of life that can't be turned into content. When you choose not to post, you're not rejecting the world. You're simply reclaiming your place in it, on your own terms. You become, in Žižek's words, the one who steps outside the spectacle and finally sees it. You begin to live intentionally, not instinctively. You begin to find beauty in being instead of broadcasting. And maybe that's the hidden lesson of this quiet psychology. that those who don't post are not antisocial, but pro-truth. They remind us that not every moment must be witnessed to be real, that sometimes the most powerful form of expression is silence. So as this video ends, pause for a moment. Don't reach for your phone. Don't rush to post or to share. Just breathe. Listen to the quiet. That still untouched silence, is where your true self waits for you. And maybe, just maybe, that's where real life begins.